I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things, a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe
I lost 1 ear.
we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMar, and I'm here with my co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
And we are bringing you For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about the environment. We talk about ecology. We talk about how it affects you, your family, your health, your wealth, your happiness. And this is our very special end-of-the-year show. I mean, hard to believe that this show has been going for an entire year. But, yep, every single Sunday right here on 106.5 FM, The Ticket, we've been here talking to people about ecology and the environment. And so what I wanted to do this episode is go back over some of the topics we've covered all year and maybe give a little bit of update, some news on them, what's happening with them. And I would also very dearly like to hear from you at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. What was your favorite show this year? What topics affected you most? What would you like to hear in our future shows? What kind of environmental topics or issues are affecting you that you want to know a little bit more about? Rebecca and I will be happy to help you. And so just give a call at any point in the show, 866-240-1065. We're looking forward to hearing you on this, our year in review show. So, yeah.
Indeed.
So, yeah, it was a year ago I took the mic here for the first time, and this was before Rebecca had joined us. And the very first episode, the very beginning of the very first episode, I made a point that I think it's good to remind everybody of, to go back over. And that is that one reason that I do this show and talk about ecology is because I consider ecology the queen of the sciences. Because really, to understand ecology, you have to have a grasp of all the other sciences. You have to understand biology, chemistry. You have to understand the way temperature works. You have to understand physics. It's just a beautiful, beautiful bringing back together of all the bits of human knowledge that all the separate sciences tore apart. And so to me, this is really one of the fundamental reasons that everyone should learn ecology. I think it should be a subject in school right next to history and science and so forth. But
Well, that's what Renaissance man used to mean, that you knew kind of a little bit about everything, including
Right.
There used to just be sort of natural philosophers, and those were guys who knew everything that there was to be known at the time about all the various sciences.
Right. I mean, we need some degree of specialization. I mean,
Then we learned more stuff, so that became a lot harder to know everything about it. Although, there was the famous Ask Dr. Science program on public television.
oh, yeah, that's good. That kind of show is good.
Although I think he might have been crazy.
It's possible, but crazy in a good way. But if you don't if you never pull all the separate bits back together again to try to get a picture of the whole, you go off on all kinds of bizarre tangents, and
Very true.
And, I've been watching this show on PBS called Space Time, which is a great show. It's actual physicists talking about physics. Well, that's when it's a great show, when the actual physicists are talking about physics. When they start talking about politics and economics and biology, they're like, they actually don't know what they're talking about.
They need to get out of the lab more often, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they understand these really incredible, subtle, complicated physics issues, so they just assume, well, so that we must know everything else too, right? So
yeah, that's the problem with people in general who have a lot of knowledge. They tend to think they just because they're right about most things, are right about everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the beautiful things about ecology, because if you study ecology, you're constantly shocked.
No doubt.
You constantly learn new things that dust storms in the Sahara fertilize the Amazon. What?
Yeah, wow. That's
how
crazy.
Is that? Yeah. And so every big ecological discovery kind of throws you back to square one, back to that, Ecology 101 class, and you have to rewrite the whole, so that's another thing I love about ecology. You cannot get arrogant if you're studying ecology, because
like that guy from Ohio, AIM, from that show that was talking about mushrooms contributing sugar to trees, and they actually need the mushrooms to have the forest or something crazy. I don't even remember it. It was very complicated though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd never just look at the forest and think that was going on.
Right. But one of the basic scientific concepts that we covered in that very first episode, which I've talked about since then, and this is something that has finally come into the mainstream. Mainstream scientists are finally saying this. But I've been saying for years, decades, 20 or 30 years, that with the climate we are caught in what's called a positive feedback loop. That is that.
Which sounds good, but it's not.
No, it's actually, in this case, a positive feedback loop is a very negative thing.
Yeah.
And that is that if you start putting in something into a system and it amplifies that, and then you feed that amplification back into the beginning of the system, it will quickly feed itself back and max out the system and blow it up, basically.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, that's the simplest and the most common positive feedback loop that we're exposed to is sound, of course. If you bring the microphone too close to the speaker, then the amplified sound from the microphone gets amplified by the speaker, which then tries to amplify it again when it goes back in the microphone,
oh, right.
and again until it gives you that horrible screech. And that horrible screech is the whole system maxed out.
Right.
You've amplified the sound until the speaker cannot amplify it anymore, and that's a positive feedback loop. Another positive feedback loop is an atomic bomb, because what happens with an atomic bomb is you shoot a neutron in there, it splits a uranium atom, and the splitting of the uranium atom shoots out two neutrons, so you've amplified the neutron signal. Those two neutrons hit two other uranium atoms. They shoot out four neutrons, and the 4,
Wow.
8, and 6, and so on and so forth until you get
So
the nice
how does it
mushroom
not destroy
cloud.
the whole world?
Well,
They must stop at some point.
Yeah, they run out of uranium atoms.
Oh, okay.
That's how
So it just does that to other uranium atoms. But then there are
Right.
some other troublesome things that exploding nuclear bombs do.
Now, in terms of the climate, very simply, as you add more carbon, you create situations that add more carbon. So, for example, and warm the globe more. So for right now, we have a rainy Sunday morning here in Ohio, and the weather forecast for today for December 29th is 60 plus degrees. And
Just wow.
yeah. And so what we're supposed to have right now is a nice snow cover. And that nice snow cover is supposed to be reflecting solar radiation back out into space. But because we've warmed the globe to the point where there's no snow cover, now the sunlight that does come in warms the Earth more. And warming the Earth more actually, in this situation, releases carbon because there's little microbes in the soil that normally, if you've got this nice blanket of snow, they just sit there and say, okay, it's winter, we're going to take a break. But if you've got warmth and you've got rain, they're like, oh, hey, let's go. And they decompose stuff and produce both methane and carbon dioxide, which puts that into the atmosphere and warms it more. And so this is why all the predictions were so far off in terms of how long it would take for the effects of global warming to really ramp up, because none of the scientists were willing to say we're in a positive feedback loop, because it's so scary and so serious.
Yeah.
And they were taking on the carbon industry. But now, this past year was such an intense year. Scientists are actually coming out and saying it. I'm seeing it in paper after paper.
They can no longer not say it and not look like complete fools.
Right, because they understand the science, the concept of a positive feedback loop, and it's pretty clear that's what's going on. So we talked about that. Then we had a couple nice guests in that very first episode. One was Diane DeRigo from NEARS, who's been a guest a couple times on the show this year.
I remember her.
Yeah, and she was talking about the Trump administration's insane plan to take care of high-level radioactive waste by simply saying it's not high-level radioactive waste, by simply changing the sticker on top.
Oh, right, of course.
It's still just as deadly, but she was talking about that. And update on that process is still going forward. The Trump administration is still pushing to have that happen. It has not yet actually happened legally, but they're well on their way. We also had on that very first show, and we were one of the very first media outlets to do this, we had an interview with the Marky Miller of Toledoans for Safe Water, talking about the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, which, against all predictions, actually passed in the city of Toledo a few months later. And then the update on that is it has been negated once again by the Ohio state government. The Ohio state legislature slipped a little something into a budget bill that just negates the Ohio, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. And that's pretty much where that's sitting now. But that was a really intense, positive thing that the city of Toledo did that really put Toledo on the map globally, because people all over the world are still talking about Lake Erie Bill of Rights and how the city of Toledo passed it. And it was a good thing that we voted that in. And it was a bad thing that the state legislature negated it. But it's something that we followed right along from the beginning as they were collecting petition signatures right through the election. And it was, it was a very upbeat, very positive thing, I think. And then, let's see. So the next episode, and what do you think of the whole Lake Erie Bill of Rights? Give us a call at 866-240-1065. Are you glad you voted for it? Did you vote against it? Are you glad it got negated by the state government, or is that something that you think the state government should have just let Toledo be Toledo and have their way with that? Give us a call at 866-240-1065 on that or any other environmental topic.
That's the thing. I was about a year and a quarter ago now, I went to visit my aunt and uncle in Massachusetts, and they had some friends of theirs over for dinner. And they saw that I was taking a bunch of my books that my uncle had read, and this guy at the dinner table actually looks at me and goes, "Oh, good, Ohio needs books." Now, Toledo has the third best library system in the country. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's really good, yeah.
So that's the thing. I mean, people on the coast think that we are dumb religious cultists here, frankly. Yeah.
Well, we've passed some laws that definitely create that impression.
But that's not what is going on. At the ground level, we're great. We have a lot of good ideas. It's just the money and power in the state legislature is negating a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And the gerrymandering is just crazy here. Oh,
that's for sure. Well, I call it the obnoxious minority. I mean, the majority of Ohioans believe in global warming. The majority of Ohioans understand that you can't legislate biology the way the Ohio state legislature just tried to do with the whole fallopian tube ectopic pregnancy law, which is going to kill people if they try it. Which is like they passed a law that was physically impossible to do.
It's going to be just Dr. Frankenstein with your reproductive system.
Yeah.
It's going to be scary if anybody actually tries that.
So that's where we get that reputation from the state government. Basically, is the one doing all these regressive things. A lot of the local governments are
and they're not doing this because
things.
We actually want them. It's because of the money and the power.
Yeah, they're getting that's
some big corporation wants them.
That's my opinion, also.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought you might agree with me on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the next episode, though, episode 2 of For a Green Future, we covered. That was where I told the scary stories of 2 nuclear plants which nearly melted down and nearly destroyed Toledo. The one, Davis-Besse, we've talked about before, which had the hole in the head accident, which came within 3/8 of an inch of literally exploding and destroying Northwest Ohio. We were almost Fukushima just before the Fukushima happened. But also, a lot of people didn't know about the Fermi 1 reactor in Michigan, which was also a nuclear reactor which had a partial meltdown, very nearly exploded, very nearly wiped both Detroit and Toledo off the map.
Boy.
And the thing about Fermi 1, and the reason to remember Fermi 1 right now, is that was a salt-cooled breeder reactor. And right now, there's a big push by the pro-nuclear people in Congress to start up nuclear research again. And guess what they want to build?
Salt cooling?
Salt-cooled breeder reactors, exactly.
Yeah.
And, the salt-cooled breeder reactors, they aren't cooled by water. They're cooled by liquid sodium.
Crazy.
Which, if liquid sodium gets exposed to the air, gets exposed to water, it explodes.
Oh, great.
It's not
what could go wrong?
Yeah, it's not enough like with regular reactors where you've got the water under huge pressures, like 40 atmospheres pressure.
Right.
That if there's a leak or something, it'll blow up. But this will also chemically blow up. So it's both under pressure and it's chemically reactive.
Okay.
And so, all right.
Where will all the Brooklyn hipsters live who can't afford Brooklyn anymore if Detroit and Toledo go?
Yeah, I don't know. So, that was episode 2. We talked about the near disasters, which both times Toledo almost got wiped off the map. So, they say third time's the charm. Let's hope that's not true with the nuke plants around us.
Yeah, really not. No, we don't need that sort of charm.
Okay, so
it's scary Ted Bundy sociopathic charm.
Right. Yeah. So anytime anybody wants to call in at 866-240-1065 on any of these stories or any story you'd like to hear in 2020, because we're lining up our shows for 2020 already, and we've got some really good shows coming up. But
Joe has plans.
I do have plans. Yes. Let's see. So then we had on the third episode, we had someone who's been on several times also. Her name is Leatra Harper, and the reason we had her on was to talk about net zero homes.
Mm.
And net zero homes are simply homes that produce more energy than they use. And so, they've got solar panels, they've got geothermal heating, and they're well insulated. And so they're really the homes of the future because they do not put carbon in the air. You can heat and cool and be perfectly comfortable. And I've been in Leatra's home, and let me tell you, it's huge, it's spacious. It's not like she's living in one of these little 10 by 10 mini homes where the bed is also the dresser and is also the cooking, surface. No, they have a nice, big, beautiful house, and it's carbon neutral. And because of all the solar panels they've got, and they're working on putting on the geothermal heating. So I don't have a lot of information on net zero home building, except I know that the number is increasing because there's projects being announced all the time. There's a huge new community being built in Florida, which is going to be net zero. The entire development will be net zero. So I do know it's increasing. But one thing I would like to point out is that some countries now are going net neutral or carbon neutral. I mean, even as we're pulling out of the Paris Accords, you might have heard recently that New Zealand announced that they just passed a law that they're going to be carbon neutral by 2050, which is a great thing. But one thing that the American media has not picked up on and did not report was in England. They just had that Boris
Johnson?
Boris Johnson, thank you.
I remember because you told me in the car. He really does know this.
Yeah,
folks.
I really do know it.
He knows.
Even if there's these pauses that,
right.
The brain is working, the information is in there. But Boris Johnson, he was a conservative, and he just got reelected, and that shocked a lot of people. But what we didn't hear here in America is that he campaigned on making England carbon neutral. So people who were voting for him were voting for a carbon neutral England. And the problem, of course, is that I believe he's lying.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, because many people don't remember or weren't even around, but George W. Bush, Al Gore, back in 2000, ran on global warming as a large part of his campaign, saying that we're going to do stuff about it, we're going to reshape our economy, and it'll make jobs, and that was all very true. And so George W. Bush was faced with that, so he just said, well, I'm going to make America carbon neutral too, and I'm going to, make a hydrogen economy, and I'm going to get us off oil, and he was lying.
You notice we are not currently off oil and didn't get anywhere close to it during the Bush administration.
Right. He was lying, but at least but what he did was he kept all those Republicans, of whom there are many, who care about the environment, who care about saving the planet. He kept them safely in his camp, and he got elected. And then he did what he did. So, but it's good news that now entire countries are pledging to go carbon neutral. So England,
they're kind of taking
New
up our
Zealand,
slack.
Yeah.
I'm almost glad that the world is sort of getting over the idea that America is actually a world leader. They seem to be just kind of that's just some idiot over there having a tantrum, and we'll just try to work around him because he's a little dangerous,
Well, actually, I found a statistic just yesterday that I hadn't realized. In my head, I was thinking, back from decades ago, that we were something like 10% of the world's population. We're actually down to 4.2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the U.S. is only 4.2% of the world's population.
Is that because, that's probably partly because the population in other parts of the world is growing, and
yes,
not because ours is shrinking necessarily.
No, we're growing. We're growing slowly.
Slower. Okay.
But the rest of the world's growing much more quickly. In fact, the rest of the world's up to 7.8 billion, almost 8 billion. And this actually does touch on something I wanted to talk about today, and that is going back to the way Trump is pulling us out of the global climate accords. All right. I want to paint a scenario. I want to just paint a picture, and we can leave the word carbon out of this picture for the moment and just picture this as a hypothetical. Let's say that you have a country on a planet, one country on a globe, and that country has about 4% of the population of that globe. And the people on this planet discover that there's a substance that they're producing which is toxic to the planet, and that it's actually very harmful to everybody on the planet. It's killing everybody. And this chemical gets put into the air, keeps getting put into the air, and entire countries start getting wiped out. Maybe there's flooding, maybe there's fire caused by this toxic chemical.
Bye-bye, Kiribati.
Yeah, well, this is all hypothetical.
Right, hypothetical.
We're
not
still hypothetical.
Anything to do with anything in the real world. Yeah.
Actual real
Sorry.
world yet.
Sorry.
And so let's say all the countries on this planet come together to agree to stop producing this chemical. And one country says, no, we're going to keep pumping it out. In fact, we're going to accelerate the amount that we pump it out because we want to. And like all the other countries, the 96% of the population are like, we can't keep doing this. You're hurting the rest of the planet. But this little country with 4% of the population says, well, screw the rest of the globe. We're going to keep doing it. what do you think might happen in such a hypothetical world if that one country thumbs its nose at the rest of the globe and keeps putting this into the air?
Well, you'd think they would all get angry at the one country who's doing that.
They might get angry, and they might try to stop that one country.
Good point.
Yeah. I think this is what Trump is actually doing.
Instead of like following our example and being idiots too, because that guy's doing it, so we can't make things better.
I think the U.S. is being turned into the bad guy.
Yeah.
I think we are being painted into that role in the globe as we continue to do just irrational things that literally hurt and sometimes destroy other countries' economies and sometimes destroy the countries physically. Now we're no longer on the hypothetical. I think the United States is being turned into the bad guy, and that's not a good place to be, especially if you've only got 4% of the Earth's population.
Yeah, we're outnumbered.
We're outnumbered, and it wouldn't take much to basically cut us off from all that oil. I mean, we're the biggest oil producer in the world right now, thanks to fracking and so forth, but we still are we're very dependent on getting oil from other countries. And if they cut us off, and if we haven't shifted to the renewable technologies, which are locally based, which we can get our own sun and our own wind, if we haven't done that and they cut off our oil, we will collapse. Our economy will collapse.
So what, and all the things we're doing, like the tar sands and the pipelines and this stuff, I mean, how long, this is like when you're just trying to get the dregs out of something, just like squeeze what little you have left for all it's worth, right? I mean, this is not some vast new resource that's going to last us for decades.
No, in fact, the prediction is about 1 decade.
Yeah.
And we're well into that 1 decade already in terms of the fracking oil.
So it's like the thing I do where I've lost some tiny thing that's important, like my keys or my ID or something, and I tear my whole house apart looking for it, and then it's useful for a minute, you know.
Right. Well, but let's go. We could leave that hypothetical country now, and go on to a more positive story. The 5th episode of For a Green Future, we talked with Craig Zerbel, and he talked to us about his wonderful electric cars. And he had a plug-in hybrid, and he bought an electric car. And we were talking about how wonderfully comfortable and reliable and dependable they are. They actually need less service than internal combustion engine cars.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're more simple. There's fewer moving parts. You don't need as much lubrication. Fewer things to go wrong in an electric motor attached to a battery than in the 8-cylinder internal combustion engine, which has pistons and valves and drive shafts that are connected to all sorts of things. And so Craig was very enthusiastic about it, and it turns out, I do have a little update information on that. 20% of Americans now say that their next car is going to be either a hybrid or an electric car.
Good for them. Maybe it'll be a trend. It'll catch on, be fashionable.
Yeah, so I think it really is. I mean, in some other countries, that's actually being legislated. So, like, I believe it's Norway has said that all cars have to be either hybrid or fully electric from now on. So other countries are ahead of us on this.
If you got a hybrid, you can just put gasoline in it and be an idiot and not take advantage of the electricity. But why would you do that once you've got one?
Yeah. Well, the advantage of a hybrid. I have a hybrid.
Right. As I know.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a few times.
Yeah, plug-in hybrid. And the advantage, unfortunately, is that the plug-in infrastructure, there's just not enough of it.
Right.
And so sometimes you just simply are caught. You've got to go from one city to another. There's no charge stations in between, so then you rely on the gas.
And then you have to spend actual money.
Yeah. But when I'm local, I've always got that thing plugged in. It's always charging, and I can get up to, I've had it up to 80 miles per gallon, and I'm working on trying to get it up to 99 miles per gallon. But it's a great car, super dependable, drives great. It's a Chrysler Pacifica, so it's got a lot of room, extremely comfortable. So anyway.
But when it's plugged in, I mean, how much does it cost you in electricity from your house?
Well, I figured that essentially I can get about from 30 to 38 miles on all electric.
Right.
And that's I put that equivalent to a gallon of gas. And so it's like getting gas for just under $2 a gallon.
No, not too shabby, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just under $2 at the price I pay for electricity to get that first 30 to 38 miles. So, so I'm saving money every time I plug in. So, and I do know if you do this, you can strategically, there are a few places where you can get free charging.
Yeah.
And so if you plan a little bit, you can get that gallon of gas for nothing. So, all right. Well, so we're booking right along. It's already the bottom of the hour here at For a Green Future. And please call in. Let's hear your ideas and your comments and what you've liked about the show over the past year, what you didn't like, any sort of comment you'd like to make, or we'd like to hear it. But now we're going to hear from our sponsors.
Cool.
First sponsor is Wood County Parks. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats, and they lead outdoor adventures. The Wood County Parks protects 20 parks and nature preserves all around Wood County, and they are open from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. And there's several ways you can contact the Wood County Park District. One is you can call them at 419-353-1897. And you can also check out their website, which is www.wcparks.org. Or you can download their nifty app and just go to the App Store and search for WC Parks. And they have all kinds of wonderful activities that we've been happy to tell you guys about. And it's definitely worth checking out, Wood County Park District. And our other sponsor for this hour is DeMar Consulting. DeMar Consulting is a computer consulting company. They will come to your home and help you with all your home computing needs. Maybe you just got a new computer and it's sitting there because you have no idea what to do, how to plug it in, how to get it started. They will come out and teach you how to do that. They can recover data from old computers, from computers that have crashed. They can help you, like if you have a bad power supply, they could replace the power supply. They can help you with hardware problems or software problems. You know, don't live with a computer problem. Call DeMar Consulting and have them come out and help you. Their number is 419-973-3000. It's 419-973-3000. Or you can go to their website, DeMarConsulting.com. And DeMar is spelled D-E-M-A-R-E, then the word consulting.com. And everyone there has a degree in computer science, so you know that they know what they're talking about. And DeMar Consulting for all your home computing needs.
Do you capitalize the M in the middle? I've never been sure about that.
Yes,
okay.
They do. Although I'm not DeMar Consulting.
Right.
It's a member of my family. I'll go that far. But yeah.
But both of you capitalize the M.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, DeMar is Italian in Italian you'd say de mare.
Right.
Which means of the sea.
So it's two separate words, which is the second one is capitalized too.
Right, exactly. So, all right. So there's our sponsors, and if you'd like to be a sponsor of this show, then there's a couple ways you can do that. One is to simply go to Patreon, which is at patreon.com, and then search for a Green Future. Our show will show up, and you can sign up if you like to become a patron. There's varying levels of monthly support, and we're extremely grateful to our patrons for their support. And the other way is you can call at 419-973-5841. And if you have a business that you think the listeners of For a Green Future might appreciate your business, give us a call, 419-973-5841. We're also on Facebook, and we have a website, which is at joedemare4agreenfuture.org. That's JOEDEMARE, then FOR, foragreenfuture.org. Okay, so where are we? So all that content, all that wonderful information, that was just literally the first 6 weeks of for a green future. So obviously,
honestly, I thought you'd been doing the program longer before I came on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason I had that impression.
Did I give that impression? That's a good impression.
Yeah, because you're so professional.
Oh, yeah, that must be it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you.
Or I'm confused. That might be it, too. A big part of it.
Well, so another topic that we covered was invasive species. We had a nice guest on from the Wood County Park District. We were talking about invasive species. And the update on invasive species is just that they're continuing to invade. There's, not enough protection of our ecosystem here in North America. We keep bringing stuff in, pellets and things that are attached to, that have insects and other critters or plants attached to them. And the latest invasive species headline is the Asian giant hornet. And the Asian giant hornet.
Oh, that sounds nice. I would like to cuddle and pet one, wouldn't you?
I think they might have made a movie about the Asian giant hornet with lots of screaming people in the streets and buildings coming down. The Asian giant hornet is a huge hornet. It's the biggest hornet in the world, about more than 1.5 inches long, and a wingspan of over 2.5 inches.
Wow.
And what they do is they eat bees.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So like honeybees, as if the honeybees didn't have enough of a problem. Now they've got a whole new predator coming on scene, the Asian giant hornet. Right now it's confined to Washington State. And what should happen right now, normally I'm opposed to pesticides, but when you have this very beginning of an invasive species, like we had a few years ago, we had the elm bark disease,
there's Dutch elm, and then there's the emerald ash borer. No, that's
emerald ash borer. No, that is the one.
Oh,
that's
okay,
the one I'm trying to
think
of. Thank you, Rebecca.
It's a thing that kills a lot of trees.
Right. And when the emerald ash borer first got here, it was out in the suburb of Detroit, and they knew it. They were like, it was like this 5-mile area. Okay, there's emerald ash borers there. And instead, normally I'm opposed to pesticides, but in that particular case, you need a scorched earth policy.
Yeah, a little strategic pesticide would have, solved us a lot of trouble saved us a lot of trouble in the long run.
Right, because letting that beetle in has wiped out an entire species. We no longer have ash trees because they were content to just watch it and say, oh, don't carry firewood around. Like that was going to stop anything. They have wings, just like the giant Asian giant hornet. They have wings too.
So it's a little bit like when they decided that the problem with lead paint is that poor people are bad parents and let their children eat paint.
Mm-hmm. Right, as opposed to removing the paint.
Right, instead of allowing for the fact that
without eating it too.
There are going to be toddlers in the house, and sometimes toddlers eat paint.
Right. So what Washington should do right now is get the pesticides out and spray the heck out of that little tiny area where there's just been a few giant wasps found, and stop this before it spreads over the whole continent, because we know from bitter experience that it will spread. They will spread over the whole continent if we don't stop them.
I don't want that.
No. All right. So once again, then we had a very inspiration. I'm going to skip around now. I'm not going to go through every single episode, obviously, because there's been 50 of them. Which I'm very grateful for those of you that have been listening for all 50 episodes and stuck with us through this whole year. It's been a great year. We love being able to get up here and talk to you about environmental and ecological issues, and it's just been, it's been a dream come true for me, basically. So thanks for listening. And one of the guests that we had on was Stephanie Shea, and she's with she helps protect the bison down there in Montana.
Oh yeah,
she's with the Buffalo Field Campaign, right? And the bison in Yellowstone, it's the last genetically pure herd of bison in America. There's a lot of other bison herds, but they're genetically they've been mixed with cattle, so European cattle. So they're not 100% pure wild bison.
Ooh, there was a thing I just saw too. There was Indiana. They're putting bison back in Indiana somewhere.
Yeah, I saw
That's
that
cool.
too. Yeah, so that's great.
Don't try to pet them.
No selfies.
Yeah.
No hugging.
I know they look all fluffy, but
right.
no.
Yeah, you want to just rub your hand. No, don't do that.
Bisons like their space. They like it a lot.
They do, and they need a lot,
Yeah,
which is why they're in
true.
Yellowstone. Unfortunately, the state of Montana and the Park Service at Yellowstone are continuing to conspire to essentially unnecessarily keep the numbers of bison really low, like maybe below what they need in order to perpetuate themselves. And so they've got a hunting season, and we're in the middle of the bison hunting season. And what the National Park has done is they've set up a whole bunch of barriers and walls and things so that when the bison try to migrate into their winter forage areas, the places where the winds come and keep the snow off the grasses on the mountaintops and things like that, what all these barriers do is they funnel them onto one strip of highway. There in Montana, they have to cross this strip of highway to get to their winter forage. And so what the bison quote-unquote hunters do is they just literally drive up in their pickup trucks and SUVs, and they park on this strip of highway, and they just wait for the bison to have to try to cross it, and then they shoot them.
Now, okay, you talk to hunters, they're always like, well, people have always done this, it's natural, like it's going to be this primal, natural thing that is restoring our nature as humans or something. So why not give the bison a fighting chance? There's a novel called Bless the Beasts and Children.
Oh, yeah.
That was made into a movie. My mom read it to me. It was kind of like, they just had the bison in a little pen and people were shooting them from platforms. If you want that artificial experience, play a video game. It's the same thing.
Right.
You don't need a video game with real blood. Get out there and give the bison a fighting chance. This is the point of this whole, we want to be natural and confront the realities of life, is that there should be some risk for you also.
Well, yeah, and the whole idea that hunting is a natural experience. You're out in the woods, you're out in nature. Get you
one of those atlatl spear thrower things and try and take a bison route with that and a few of your friends.
Yeah, get a bunch of people together for that. But so what these hunters are doing is literally just sitting in their cars with
you have to nap the flint yourself.
Yeah.
New rule, I made it up.
Yeah, sitting in their cars, engines running,
what the hell?
Wi-Fi working,
But they're
waiting.
big men. They're already that much smarter than the bison, in terms of having bigger brains, allegedly. Some people would say that bison is smarter for not destroying the planet, but...
Yeah. Well,
you already have all these advantages. Really, you need it to be that easy.
Yeah. So, that's what's going on right now is that there's still now there have been about 155 bison killed so far this year. The season runs until February 15th. So even with this setup, there actually a lot of the bison are managing to evade the hunters, but we know that if the numbers get too high, then the Park Service will just send them into traps, round them up, and slaughter them. So
this does not make you manly. It makes you a whiny little boy who wants everything done for him. Seriously.
Well, it's still, and part of the thing is that the Buffalo Field Campaign recognized the rights of the indigenous community and recognized the right to hunt.
Right.
They're not opposed to hunting.
Right.
But they are opposed to this.
Just leave a few.
This shooting gallery kind of.
Give the buffalo a fighting chance and leave a few for next year.
Right.
That way you can have your fun next year too with the hunting buffalo.
Yeah, why not let them get up to 10, 15,000? Then you can shoot. Then you can hunt 1,000 bison instead. If they keep the numbers down at 2,000, every single bison that you lose diminishes the genetic capabilities of the herd, the genetic resources that much. So, all right, but they're continuing to fight. The Buffalo Field Campaign is continuing to fight and stay with the bison and track them and do just absolutely heroic things. For me, that was the most inspiring interview of the year. My interview with Stephanie Shea.
That was pretty cool.
From the Buffalo Field Campaign. Then we went on, and another thing we've been covering all year, which is House Bill 6. I'll just say it.
Good old House Bill 6.
Yeah, I paused there.
Gift that keeps on giving.
Because of the trauma.
Yeah.
But, if you've listened to the show at all, you know that House Bill 6 was a bill that bailed out the nuclear plants and coal plants by adding money to our electric bills, and it also eliminated our energy efficiency programs and funding for wind and solar power. So it passed the House, passed the Senate. I mean, we fought every step of the way. DeWine signed it, though, while the ink was still wet, an hour or so after the Senate passed it. Then there was the petition drive to overturn it, to put it on as a referendum. And we have an update, because what happened in that referendum is that the Secretary of State took 38 of the 90 days that the petitioners had to gather their 45,000 signatures. And the update is that the Supreme Court is going to hear an appeal, because the people who are gathering signatures said, look, we're given 90 days. The Secretary of State wasted almost half of it. We could not gather while he was considering it, and he kept taking the maximum amount of time he was allowed to consider it. So give us back those days, and we'll finish getting the signatures. We'll get enough to put it on the ballot. So it was appealed to the federal court. Federal court said, Ohio Supreme Court, this is your decision, because it's an Ohio thing. And Ohio Supreme Court just this past week announced they will hear the case. So it's possible that they will decide in favor of the petitioners, and petitioning will open up again, and there'll be another 38 days to gather petition signatures. So fingers are crossed.
There we go.
Yeah, which just goes to show you, never stop fighting.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it might seem hopeless. It might seem like First Energy has full control of the legislature. Do they have full control of the Ohio Supreme Court?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But the fact that they're hearing it, at least says they don't have 100% absolute control over them.
And really, we're down to the wire here. Every little bit helps. The longer we can delay anyone from doing anything horrible and stupid, the more we might have a chance to actually fix things.
Yeah. So, and of course they delayed the additional charges on our bills till after the 2020 election, because they didn't want everybody's electric bill going up and saying, wait, who's responsible for this? Oh, the Republicans. Okay.
There might be some thinking that went on then, yeah.
Although, to be fair, Democrats also voted for this, and they made it happen too. So it's like, so, all right, then on to, now this year, 2019, one thing that we covered several times was the 40th anniversary of the 3 Mile Island accident.
Ah, yes.
Yes, and we've had a couple guests on talking about that, including Libby Haleve, who was there when it happened and told us a terrifying tale of being given misinformation and false information and no information. And so the people of the area, people who lived around 3 Mile Island, had no idea. Literally, they were being exposed to a cloud of radioactive gas that was getting emitted from the nuclear plant. And another thing that has come out this year, there was a study done that showed that, yes, the thyroid cancers, because that region of Pennsylvania right around 3 Mile Island has the highest rate of thyroid cancer in the country. And ecologists and those of us who watch the nuclear industry have said for decades that's because of 3 Mile Island. But the scientists have all said, or not the scientists, the corporations have all said, no, that it's just a coincidence. Well, there was finally a biological study this year that identified the specific mutations that caused those specific thyroid cancers. That's how good we've gotten at genetics. And it turns out that, yes, those specific mutations were caused by the radiation released from 3 Mile Island. So
not just a highly suspicious coincidence.
Right. No. So those people are suffering and will continue to suffer, because there's a whole bunch of other radioactive...
That thing looking and quacking like a duck was actually a duck, it turns out. Who knew?
It only took 40 years,
yeah.
But the truth has won out finally on that. And one cool thing about that is they closed the still working reactor, the reactor number 1, finally closed this past year also.
Thank you, baby Jesus.
Yeah, so that was some good news there.
Oh, good.
Yeah, every time a nuke gets shut down, I allow myself a day of bliss.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Joe.
Right, because, you can't keep staying negative all the time. You have to, when there's a victory, you got to savor that victory. So.
There's a saying that I heard someplace, beyond mountains, there are mountains.
Right. All right, well, oh man, we're running out of time. A couple quick things. One is plastic bag bans. We had an interview with John Zanfordino, who was a city councilor in Bowling Green, Ohio. He was proposing a ban on plastic bags in that city. Well, it got derailed by the Republicans and a conservative Democrat, and who promised, they said at the time, the only reason we're doing this is because the state is considering banning plastic bag bans, and we don't want to pass a ban and then have it reversed. And it's like, why not? But that was their excuse, and they said at the time, if it comes to December and the state legislature still hasn't passed their ban, then we'll bring this back and we'll pass Bowling Green's plastic bag ban. And they were lying.
Yeah.
Oops, again, another lie. But on the bright side, some updates on plastic bag bans in Ohio. Cuyahoga County has passed a plastic bag ban, and they're going to stop an estimated 320 million plastic bags a year from being created just in Cuyahoga County, and their ban goes into place January 1st.
Okay.
So that's something. And also there's a little municipality called Orange Village. It's down near Cincinnati. They've also passed a plastic bag ban.
Good for them.
Joining many large cities and many states now around the country where plastic bags have been banned and society has not collapsed. So, in fact, I want to talk just for a second about synergy, because I've been trying to get rid of plastic bags in my life. And I find that once you start doing something like that, just saying, okay, no more plastic bags, that leads to other changes, other positive changes.
Huh.
For example, this is a very simple example. I wanted to get rid of the plastic bag liner in my kitchen wastebasket.
Wow. How would you do that?
Well, I'll tell you. You start composting all the nasty stuff.
Oh, right.
So I've got a compost thing going now, which I didn't have before.
You got a garden, or you give it to other people?
No, I have a garden.
Oh, cool. All right.
And which I can put the compost on. But without that nasty stuff, without the compostables, which I shouldn't have been throwing away anyway, now I can just have a regular wastebasket and not have to put a plastic bag, which is designed to be thrown away.
Yeah.
In my liner.
And there's less stinky, nasty stuff that's just going to spill, and you have to scrub out the wastebasket, and all kinds of terrible things happen.
Right. And so
that's in your compost bucket.
Right. It's all in the compost bucket.
Rinse it out with a hose.
I have to go out every morning. I have to go dump the compost.
Right.
Which, okay, so I have to go out in the yard once a day. That's not really terribly suffering.
Yeah, you probably should leave the house at least once a day anyhow.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Good for your mental health.
Right. So, so plastic bag bans are proceeding, just not right here in Northwest Ohio the way it looked like they might, but then the state legislature still has not passed its ban on bans because a lot of people oppose that because it violates local sovereignty, basically.
Yeah.
We're down to 5 minutes. All right. The biggest story of 2019 environmentally, in my opinion, the fact that the Earth is pretty much burning. The Earth burned in 2019.
It sure did. Wow. Just wow.
It was the Amazon burned at unprecedented rates.
The Congo.
Africa burned at unprecedented rates. All the places that start with A.
California. That's an exception.
And California, right.
ANC, Congo, California, Australia, Africa. Amazon.
They all had incredible wildfires, and the Australian wildfires, of course, are still continuing.
Yeah. They're down to a third of the koalas now have survived.
Right. And I just wanted to say that the single most poignant eco moment for me in the year 2019 was when the Venice state legislature, or the Venice city government, voted down a proposal to reduce greenhouse emissions in the city of Venice, and literally within a minute the ocean flooded the council chambers because of global warming. And
that'll alarm them.
To be
actually, I'm afraid it won't. But
that kind of summed up the whole year.
Yeah, geez.
But one other thing we had going the whole year was our letters from the future. They've helped keep us going.
Very true.
Letters from my great-great-granddaughter, Marie I. And she sent me a letter this week. So here it is, this week's letter from the future. Dear great-great-grandpa, it's times like these that I'm really glad that I'm writing to you. It helps me get my own thoughts together. Something has happened that has thrown me into complete confusion. I told you last week that I was scheduled to see the head of the Martian colony, Bill Ryderson. I expected the meeting to be just another dry exchange of credentials, but a lot more than that happened. My brother Sam and the other colonists talk about him as if he's larger than life, and he literally is. Having been born on Mars, he's just over 8 feet tall. But he's not at all gangly because he exercises every day. He's got normal proportions. He's literally a giant. He actually can't ever visit Earth. The stronger gravity would break his bones. When I entered his office, I was kind of overwhelmed. He has the largest office on Mars, almost half of a pressure dome. Hanging in the air, he has a 10-foot diameter hologram of Mars. Well, not actually Mars as it is. It's a hologram of a completely terraformed Mars, complete with rivers, shallow oceans, forests, and cloud systems. It rotates there slowly, and he can stop it and examine any part of it, even the interior of the planet. I know because he showed me. It was a little disconcerting when he stood up from behind his desk and came around to greet me. He's so tall that he towered over me, and it was actually difficult to get the correct perspective. When we shook hands, I'm afraid I squeezed his hand so hard that it hurt him. I forgot that those of us from Earth are so much stronger than the Martians. I could pick him up easily. But after that awkward handshake, Bill assured me it was okay. He was just slightly bruised. Then he quickly put me at ease. To my surprise, he knew an amazing amount about bacteriology. He had read my PhD thesis and had very intelligent questions about it. In fact, he was full of questions about bacteria and seemed particularly interested in my research discoveries on the Kola Peninsula drilling project. He congratulated me on discovering a new species of bacteria and was very attentive to everything I had to say. It was his last appointment of the day, so he invited me to have dinner with him. There's actually only 2 restaurants on Mars, and most people take all their meals at the central communal cafeteria, but the restaurant he took me to was very nice with simulated wood booths and electric candlelight. We talked about bacteria, and he told me a little bit about what it's like to run the colony under his leadership. He's a very dynamic person. When he talks about his plans, you can't help but get caught up in his enthusiasm. I'm skipping ahead a little here. Well, we hit it off really well, and before I knew it, somehow we were back at his place, and I spent the night there. Now I'm completely confused. Where does this mean with my relationship with Michael? There's a saying, what happens on Mars stays on Mars, but is it really true? Anyway, I don't have time to think about it for the next couple days. I have to go to the drilling site and look at the project there. I still haven't been able to analyze the soil samples I took. Bill promised to get me some lab time, but it hasn't happened yet. Wow. Well, thanks for listening, GGG. Keep up the good work, and I'll write again next week. Love, Marie I.
And Happy New Year's to Marie, assuming our old radio shows have survived into the future.
Yes, and Happy New Year to all of you. This is Joe DeMar.
And Rebecca Wood.
Signing off.
The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done.